The marketing promise of you're getting the true Texas experience, and
Yeah, it's all marketing.
I'm in the Lone Star State, specifically the greater Austin area, where I am off to meet Aaron Franklin Barbecue and talk about the Franklin Barbecue Pits. So I'm on a journey not only to learn more about the people, but also the place responsible for making some of the world's best barbecue. Let's go meet him. Hey, I'm James.
Well, hey, Liddly Diddly.
Diddly diddly, that'll work. Thanks for having me and talking about the Franklin Pit.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just excited to talk about stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Let's get into it.
Let's party. Hey there, I'm Aaron Franklin from Franklin Barbecue here in Austin, Texas. And I am standing outside our little to-go trailer behind Franklin Barbecue proper in front of the Franklin Backyard Barbecue. I've been working on this for a while. I really like them a lot. Every time I fire one up, I think to myself, this might be the best barbecue pit I've ever cooked on.
So where and how did the love of barbecue for you get started?
I haven't found it yet. No, I'm kidding. My parents had a barbecue place when I was a kid. I was about 10, 11, 12, and I thought it was so cool. I wanted to work there so bad, and I did. I never really cooked anything, but I did a lot of prep. I worked lunches. I had a blast, and that was super cool. They sold it. I moved on. They moved on. And then maybe 2001, 2002, my now wife, then girlfriend, and I had just gotten our first little apartment together, and I had a backyard. So, of course, I ran out like any good Texan. I picked up a cheap little offset cooker for $99 from the hardware store. Went to the grocery store, bought a $30 brisket, put it on, built a fire with whatever, probably pallets or something, I don't know. But really, I mean, that night I remember just sitting in the backyard, having a beer, and feeling like, oh my God, I love this so much. But really, I think what I loved was just the smell of it, and the art of it and the craftiness. But I also really love the aesthetics. I was kind of thinking about the old school barbecue joints where you have a cool screen door that slaps every time somebody walks in. You've got the patinaed wood up in the smokehouse. You've got a cool brick pit. And I just love that stuff so much. It's so beautiful. And that's kind of the romance of it. But the thing that really keeps me going is just the craft of it. It's the gift that keeps on giving. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I still have a lot to learn, and I'm still figuring things out. I'm still, do something oh, that's a cool idea. I never thought of it that way. But I don't know. It's just really fun.
So Central Texas means so many things to barbecue. What's it mean to you?
Well, it means we're in the middle of Texas. Surrounded by all these different types of barbecue. I feel like when you travel, or when I travel at least, no matter what country I'm in, there's a Central Texas, there's Texas style barbecue. But I feel like everybody really is talking about Central Texas barbecue. And that comes from the beef. We've traditionally had cows down here as opposed to pigs. But the thing that makes Central Texas barbecue is the wood that we have, and that's post oak. So that's what it means to me. It means the land of post oak, which also happens to be the best gosh darn wood to cook with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So if you go back, when did this idea first start for you? The idea of taking what you've done in the restaurant and making it accessible for...
Like everything for me, it was a slow evolution. I started off building 500-gallon pits. When we were in a trailer, and then we moved to the building in 2011, and I immediately realized we needed a lot more than the 24 briskets we were cooking. So I built 1,000-gallon, getting to work every night at midnight, cooking ribs, and all right, really kind of started figuring out how to do it. So each one that I built would be a little bit different. I would move a smokestack up a little bit, move this, bring this firebox half an inch further in, really kind of tweaking stuff, but also had a welder on site. So there were, when we cooked out here in the backyard, before we built the smokehouse in 14, I would make these things, and I would actually adjust the cookers during the cook, and then it'd be okay, this is the sweet spot, weld it, tack it, cook on it for a month, you're oh, I like it like this. And I started kind of just checking off the boxes of the characteristics that they needed to have. And then also in 14, we were writing the first Franklin book, the manifesto. And that was a book on what I was doing then, how to make a restaurant, this is how we cook everything. Of course, that's changed a lot, in the last 10 years. But in that book, we did a little how-to section on how to build a backyard cooker. And that first one was really the first Franklin backyard pit. And that's kind of what got me thinking on it. And initially, we've never made commercial pits because I don't want to like, just sell something to somebody that can make money. Like I wanted it to inspire people in the same way that I was inspired.
Right.
Like, okay, backyard, do it for yourself,
right.
learn, have a great time, do it for your friends and family.
Right.
And then if you move on, that's great. So, when we were doing the book, I was like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. I never really thought about building a small one. And then I sat on it for a couple of years, didn't mess with it. And then I kind of started really thinking about it. I was like, it would be cool to build something. And we started building prototypes, built quite a few of them. And some of them weren't great. They were all basically identical to this with just little baby tweaks. But over the years, once we really started making them, in actual volume, putting out 25 a week or so, really started tweaking the stuff and got the details down on these things. Like all these start off flat because pipes are out of round.
Yeah.
So we roll them perfectly round. And like on the casters, like we fabricate the yoke, we lay the yokes for the casters. Like everything is done by hand, but there's all these little details. Like, these beautiful welds, we press these heads, we put them on stuff that we roll, stainless, handle that spins right there. The insides are kind of ported and polished. We blind weld these, and then we go grind out and make them smooth.
Right.
We burnish the inside of the smokestack so nothing gets caught on there.
Right.
Like, there's all these details you never really see. But that's kind of what, devil's in the details. And I'm a details guy.
Yeah. Well, I spend a lot of time thinking about how to perfect my dry rub or getting an even better bark on my brisket. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the sun and or proper skincare routines. But if there's something that I notice doing YouTube videos, going back in my library particularly, it's when I've enjoyed a little bit too much brisket or when I can see the effects of aging happening on clips I didn't think I recorded all that long ago. So until there's smoking wood logs invented with SPF protection built in, I've partnered with Geologie to try a little bit harder to slow down the speed at which I'm racing towards granddad mode. Don't know if my sweater's helping the cause, but that's beside the point. While I may be willing to give up my straight dry edge shave in the morning, I needed something that's simple, no fluffy extras, and actually has science behind it, proving that it works at targeting things I've noticed in my own skin, like the bags under my eyes or some of these sunspots. Geologie isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. I took the quiz on the website, which created a personalized routine for me. There are over 10,000 5-star reviews and 38 awards that gave me the confidence to start a new personalized routine tailored to my specific needs. If you'd like to join me at reversing some of those flame-kissed skin side effects, be sure to check out the link down below and take the Geologie skincare quiz to create your own personalized routine. And while you're there, when you check out, enter code BBQ70 and grab 70% off your first subscription box of your personalized skincare trial set. Remember, there's also a 50% add-on waiting for you. Thanks, Geologie, for partnering with me and sponsoring today's video. Now, back to the action. So I'm curious, you mentioned, I read once you said you did like hundreds of prototypes.
I don't think it was hundreds. Okay. It was probably like...
Lots of prototypes.
Quite a few. I mean, I bet you we probably had 20 or 30.
Right.
We just literally like, oh, well, let's try these hinges. I don't like this finish,
Right.
Like we've had a junkyard going. We've gotten rid of most of them. But.
I can imagine. So I was curious on that, though, the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or Honey, I Shrunk the Backyard Pit. What are some of the things...
I love that reference, by the way.
Right, when you shrink an offset from like what you're using in the restaurant down to the backyard, was there any sort of like surprises or little new challenges for you?
Definitely new challenges, because like I think for like size-wise, like about a 500, 700-ish gallon size, I think about 36 to 40 inch diameter is kind of the sweet spot for a cooker with a certain length. But figuring out, I think the biggest challenge was, like I knew the size. It's like, okay, 3 briskets all from the same side of the cow, those 3-sided cows.
The best ones.
And then to figure out how to make it, like things that don't like flex and warp. And if you look at these doors, like they don't really stick out, but if you cut it out of a pipe, the second you cut that door, it wants to bend back out. So just figuring out stuff like that, like how to torque things, tolerances for these hinges. If you look at these, like how we burnish the insides of these, how we have the door stop, like all those little like really well thought out details. The biggest challenge was like that kind of stuff, and then how we're going to do it like
Right.
practicing the production and like really getting in there. But learning how to cook on it, because you have the size. You know,
Right.
in my head, I know the
Yeah,
firebox size. I know how tall the smokestack needs to be, 42
Right.
inches. But learning how to build a fire to be able to tell other people how to build fires.
Right.
Because I think if you're not used to cooking on something like this, it's like, whoa, what's going on? This fire is like really, you know, it's too hot, it's too cold, but it really comes down to like the size of the wood.
Right.
And how to keep a consistent coal bed in something this small.
Yeah, love it.
So these were intended to be something that we could replicate. Like everyone is exactly like the other ones. Like there are no differences, you know, like, and if we look at the inside, you know, like some of the details, like, you know, we round off the bottom of this, like there's all these little things that make it perfect. That, you know, like the way we build the grates and stuff, even like the little notch right there for a wire to come out for a thermometer. Like there's a lot of details, but if I'm building the big ones, it doesn't matter. Like they don't have to be pretty. I don't care if they rust. I don't care if a weld looks ugly. It just needs to not fall off. So, and I think that's how like a lot of them are built. But these things, like we built these to last 100 years. You know, everything's keyed in with lasers. There's jigs for everything. There's no one-on-one. It's like, oh, well, it's a little crooked. Like these things are freaking perfect. And that's the way they're meant to be. So that's completely different from how we would build something up front. I mean, even down to the back trim on this stuff. So when you look at the front, you see a nice reveal that's not covered up by trim. Like you know, back to the details, of course. The big ones upstairs, there's no details. They just have to work really good.
Workhorses. Good leading question on that, on the wire lead there. So, you know, the technology intersection in barbecue. So we've got, like, obviously the old school craft, hundreds of years doing it the old fashioned way. Maybe this is leading the witness, but what do you see sort of the intersection of technology versus craft, and is it starting to get to the point where it's doing maybe more harm, sort of the marketing message?
It does more harm when people rely on it too much, you know, because like a craft, and you know, there's like a certain area of like science, technology, and things like that. But when you get too much of that and you lose a feel for it, well, you've kind of lost the soul. You know, and I think that's a little tricky. I think for backyard stuff, it's really cool that you can use a pellet cooker, you can get a good night's sleep, and you can get a really, really good meal out of it. It won't be as good as it could be, but it's also consistent. You didn't lose a night's worth of sleep. You get to go to work, and you come home, and it's there. You know, I think that's really cool, and I think the convenience factor is awesome. Obviously, I love thermometers. You know, it's nice to have a little bit of a roadmap for what's going on inside a piece of meat, or how hot your fire is. You can't just, like, the only thing is like, oh, I can just feel how hot it is. No, you can't. You know it's hot. That's as good as you can get. But I'm kind of a science nut, so I need to be able to replicate everything, and that's how we cook here. But at the end of the day, your hands and your feel in the craft have to trump any technology. Like, you just have to get a feel for it.
I'm taking a guess based off of things you've said in other interviews, but I love hot rods, rat rods, cars, driving.
And these are my little hot rods.
Exactly. And, you know, no arguing, like ABS saves lives, so that's maybe a good thing. But you jump in, like my rental car here, and it's trying to drive itself, and the wheels arguing with me. I don't like that.
I don't either. And there's something real cool about jumping in an old, like, flathead Ford, you know, like a 3 on the tree, and be like, oh, oh, this is cool.
This is good. So, like, on that, so this may be to my knowledge, and cut me off if I'm wrong or leading the witness, but...
Well, gotta go.
I don't think any place ever in the history of Texas Monthly has been recognized using a pellet grill. So, like, on pellet grills...
I don't think so. And, you know, but they don't really make them for commercial use, you know? But, I mean, they... You know, in the 80s, it was a real big scene, more of a Houston kind of thing, but it kind of took over everywhere, I guess, like gas-fired rotisseries. And that's kind of like, when I was coming up, that's what everybody was using.
So I'm only about 10 years into, you know, cooking on an offset, but I maybe felt, maybe betrayed is the wrong word, but the marketing promise of you're getting the true Texas experience, and
it's all marketing.
I could not have been more shocked at the difference.
They taste completely different, but the opportunity to really mess up a cook is there. Like, if you're not gonna, like, really hone in, be there, be present, be detailed and meticulous. Maybe a pellet cooker's for you.
Well, that leads me
but you gotta kind of pick your battles,
right?
You know?
Well, speaking of that, like you made some really interesting design choices with that. In terms of, I saw you talking to Jeremy at Mad Scientist about the door design and the hours and hours.
Oh, that took me longer to figure out that gosh darn door than anything. This stuff stayed the same for every version except that door. I've got stacks of doors that we got.
And so maybe this is a YouTube thing. There's always that kind of the quest for the new thing, but there's a bit of a trend now.
You know what's new?
What?
Old stuff.
Old, yeah, exactly.
It always comes full circle. It's like,
right.
oh, this new thing. And then like, oh, maybe it's not as great as it was. Like, there's definitely like the type of person that gets into offset cooking, that gets into barbecue.
Right.
I think is also the kind of person that does what we do.
Yeah, yeah. So on that, the clean smoke, dirty smoke, like this is designed intentionally so people can do a good job getting a nice clean fire.
Absolutely. Well, and the real reason for that is I didn't want somebody buying this thing, spending a bunch of money. They're not cheap because steel is really expensive and labor is really expensive.
Yeah.
And they're really heavy, 589 pounds, I believe. But, I didn't want somebody buying this and be like, man, I thought it was going to taste like Franklin barbecue. And it didn't. Like, no excuses. Like, if you choke off a door, it's not going to taste good.
Right. Is that part of the same reason with the stack?
Absolutely, yeah. Although I will say when it gets cold, sometimes I'll put a little piece of foil and choke it off just a hair if it's like really windy or something outside.
Right.
And kind of the same thing with the firebox too. You could shove some foil over that if it was like, if you're in Canada and it was really cold.
Right. Exactly. Where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice to come down here and warm up.
Yeah.
Unthaw a little bit.
Totally.
So I flew 1,600 miles. And 30 minutes from me, I can walk into a retail store and there's a Franklin barbecue pit. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so
it took us a while to develop that dealer network because we managed all that in-house.
Right.
And it was really us just like looking around. We're like, oh, these guys seem cool. We kind of like interviewed people to make sure they were like nice and had a neat shop and they were good for the community and all that kind of stuff. And we just put together the greatest little dealer network.
It's amazing. Where's the furthest place you've got a customer you've seen or heard using
all over the world. There's some in Japan, a lot of them in Europe, a lot of them in Canada. There's a handful in Australia. Probably everywhere in between, I guess.
Yeah. Amazing.
There are quite a few of these things around.
It's good accomplishment.
Mostly in Texas, though, but we do need to get more out there.
Amazing. So coming back to maybe kind of YouTube, and there's always, a new brisket. It's like, have we reached the spot where brisket's perfect? Or
you know what? I can't tell you how many years it's been since I've watched anything on barbecue or read anything on barbecue. No.
I think sometimes that's a good thing to do.
I think so.
Yeah.
Really what it comes down to is I don't want any decision we make here to be influenced by what someone else is doing. Like, I want it to be something that we're passionate about, we're good at it. We do the 5 meats, we do the 3 sides, and we do it hopefully better every day than we've ever done it.
Yeah.
And of course it ebbs and flows like any place, but I don't really watch stuff. I just don't. I don't know. It makes me feel really, really weird when I read about barbecue, especially if someone mentions me. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to read about me again.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
Stay out of the comment section.
That's
rule number 1.
Don't read the back page.
Exactly. So we covered a lot of ground, but if there's something maybe I didn't touch on, and somebody's in the market thinking this might be the year, or maybe shortly thereafter, this is the year I'm going to jump in. Any detail about the Franklin barbecue pit that I haven't touched on, you haven't had a chance to share yet, you'd like to sort of leave with people for why they should take the plunge and go to your website, check out the Franklin barbecue
Well,
pit
you should definitely go to the website and check it out.
Yeah.
I think, if you're looking for something, like, you get what you pay for, I mean, they're really expensive, they'll last forever, and kind of and I think we said this in the manual or somewhere, but kind of the idea behind this is it's kind of like grandma's cast iron skillet. Like, you season it, you take care of it, it'll take care of you forever, and then you can hand it down.
Right.
And this should be a multi-generational cooker. There's nothing about this thing other than the bottom grate that should ever rust out, and that's why it has bolts and it's not welded.
Right.
Because you can buy a replacement grade.
Right.
Well, just anyone.
Yeah.
But they're built really well, crazy amounts of details. But to my knowledge, it's the only one on the market that's really designed and built from a cooker's perspective. A lot of them are built, like I said, to like look cool, or maybe like somebody tries to mimic this smokestack collector, but they do it different or whatever. Like, it's all inspired by something else. Like, there is nothing other than pure love of cooking that inspired this cooker.
Right.
And that's what I think really makes it different, what makes it special. It's the best darn cooker out there.
Well, I know you're on a time crunch. I really appreciate you taking the time
Brisket's about
to
ready.
chat to us. Brisket's about ready. Thanks so much, Aaron. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, super fun.
Thank you.